In 2005 to 2007, if you walk down the streets in Lagos or Nairobi, 9 out of 10 people had a Nokia in their pocket. Today, you can barely find one. But Nokia didn't just die. They were murdered by a brand nobody in America has ever heard of. Back then, Nokia didn't just sell phones. They were like a religion. They had 60, sometimes 70% of the entire African market. They were untouchable. To understand this massive shift in the global technology market, we have to look beyond the standard business headlines and dig into one of the most ruthless market disruptions in history, involving a company called Transsion Holdings and their flagship brand, Tecno Mobile. While the Western world was distracted by the battle between the Apple iPhone and Samsung Galaxy, a quiet revolution was happening across the African continent that would completely rewrite the rules of mobile phone economics. For years, Nokia was the undisputed king of mobile phones in Africa, holding a market share that seemed impossible to break because they built devices like the Nokia 3310 that were practically indestructible, which was exactly what consumers in developing nations needed at the time. To understand how Nokia lost, you have to understand how big they were. The Nokia 3310 and 1100 were tanks. In Africa, where durability mattered, they were perfect. But Nokia made a fatal error. However, Nokia's downfall wasn't caused by bad hardware. It was caused by a fatal strategic error in understanding the local consumer needs in key markets like Nigeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Ghana. The giant from Finland made the mistake of treating African consumers exactly the same as European consumers, assuming that single SIM device designed for London or Helsinki would work perfectly in Lagos or Accra. But they were wrong. They treated Africa like it was Europe. They tried to sell the exact same phones in Nigeria that they sold in London. They ignored the specific daily problems that African users faced. And that arrogance left the door open for a company called Transsion Holdings. Enter George Drew, the founder of Transsion, who traveled to Africa and noticed something that Nokia's executives completely missed in their boardroom meetings. Network instability meant that almost everyone carried 2 or even 3 different phones to switch between SIM cards like MTN, Airtel, and Safaricom to avoid high cross-network charges. Here is the reality of the African market in 2008 that Nokia ignored. 1. Network coverage was unreliable, so people carried 2 or 3 phones for different SIM cards. 2. Electricity was inconsistent. You needed a battery that lasted days, not hours. 3. And this is the big one. Camera technology. While Nokia and other major players like Samsung refused to manufacture dual SIM phones because telecommunication carriers in Europe didn't want them, Tecno Mobile saw a golden opportunity to solve a massive pain point. In 2007, Tecno launched the T780, the very first dual SIM mobile phone in Africa, and it was an instant viral success because it allowed users to consolidate their chaotic mobile lives into one single device, effectively saving them money and pocket space. Then came the dual SIM revolution. Nokia refused to add dual SIM slots for years because European carriers didn't want them. Tecno didn't care about Europe. They flooded Lagos and Nairobi with dual SIM phones so people could stop carrying 2 devices. They added batteries that lasted 72 hours. They added keyboards in Hausa, Swahili, and Amharic. This was the first nail in Nokia's box, but the second nail was even more critical and revolves around camera, technology, and algorithmic bias. For years, global smartphone cameras were calibrated based on light skin tones, which meant that photos taken by darker skinned users in low light environments often came out looking poor or unrecognizable. While Nokia was optimizing their cameras for light skin tones in Western markets, Tecno did something revolutionary. They analyzed thousands of faces to calibrate their sensors specifically for darker skin tones. Suddenly, for millions of people, selfies actually looked good. They looked like them. Tecno Mobile invested millions into research and development specifically for African faces, analyzing over 10,000 photos to create a proprietary camera algorithm that optimized exposure and focus for darker skin tones, a feature that instantly made their Tecno Camon series and Infinix phones a status symbol for content creators and everyday users across the continent. This wasn't just a tech feature, it was a sign of respect that built immense brand loyalty that Nokia simply couldn't compete with. Furthermore, the business strategy of Transsion Holdings went even deeper into localization by tackling the issue of electricity shortages. In many parts of rural Africa, consistent power is a luxury, so a smartphone that dies in 12 hours is useless. Tecno responded by building massive batteries into devices like the Tecno Pouvoir and itel series that could last for 3 to 4 days on a single charge, creating a product that was purpose-built for the environment rather than adapted from a Western model.
Made in Ghana, but we do tell them that it's made in China. They said, wow, it's very good. They love the phone.
While Nokia was trying to push the expensive Lumia series running Windows Phone, an operating system that had zero app support and required high data usage, Tecno was flooding the market with affordable Android smartphones that brought the internet to millions of people for the first time. This effectively democratized the smartphone market in Africa. By 2010, Transsion had completely ceased operations in Asia to focus 100% of their resources on Africa, a move that seemed insane to financial analysts at the time, but proved to be a masterstroke of niche dominance. They didn't just ship phones from China, they built a manufacturing plant in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, creating local jobs and avoiding import tariffs, which allowed them to keep the price of their devices significantly lower than Samsung or Nokia could ever dream of matching. But their smartest move was physical. In 2011, while Nokia was still shipping phones from abroad, Tecno opened a manufacturing plant in Ethiopia. They became a local brand. They weren't just sold in Africa, they were made there. This globalization strategy, thinking globally but acting locally, allowed Tecno, along with its sister brands Infinix and itel, to capture over 40% of the entire African smartphone market share. The financial results of this strategy are staggering. Transsion Holdings went public on the Shanghai Star Market with a multi-billion-dollar valuation, proving that focusing on forgotten markets is actually a path to becoming a global tech giant. Today, Tecno isn't just a budget brand. They are pushing into the premium market with the Phantom series, challenging the dominance of the iPhone in the luxury sector and even expanding into South Asia and South America.
We're very excited to bring the best mobile device efforts of Microsoft and Nokia together. Our Windows Phone partnership over the last 2.5 years has yielded incredible work. The stunning Lumia 1020 is perhaps the finest example of that work. Our partnership has also yielded incredible growth. In fact, Windows Phone has grown over 78% in the last year and is now clearly the number 3 offering in the marketplace.
The mother of Nokia in Africa serves as a brutal business case study for any entrepreneur or investor. If you ignore the specific, nuanced needs of your customer because you are too focused on what works in the West, a hungry underdog will come along, listen to the people, and take everything you built. Nokia had the brand, the money, and the history, but Tecno had the ear of the street. As we look at the future of the smartphone industry, the question is no longer who can beat Apple in America, but who will win the next billion users in the emerging markets of the global south. Transsion has already proven they know the playbook better than anyone else. So the next time you see a Tecno phone, don't just see a cheap Android device. Recognize it as the weapon that took down a giant, just because they can't do anything to stop at nothing. And this wasn't even the craziest part of the story. The part nobody reported? That's the next video. Subscribe and click that video to find out about what happened to the girl who people scammed our own country through one TikTok post.